Points. Points or so-called switches are the major components of the railway station. This session deals with the installation and maintenance practice of the points and point machines. Points or so-called switches are the major components of the railway station. Points are used to divert a train from one line to another line. Points are operated in power installations by point machines. Points are installed by engineering departments. However, signal department personnel are responsible for operation and maintenance of the points. There are different makes of point machines manufactured by various companies. Indian Railway installs and uses point machines operated by DC and AC power supply. In this session, we will be learning about the DC type split field point machines. The session is confined to best installation practices, testing practices, and maintenance practices of points. Point machine installation. The IRS point machine is installed with ground connection and layout as per RDSO drawing S3262 by 63. It is advisable to install the point machine at the side where the tongue is normally closed. This shall be advantageous for maintaining bars, which are then as much inside the machine as possible. Check that the two long sleepers, sleeper number 3 and 4, are on equal horizontal level. The top surface of the two sleepers should be even and leveled. The measure for the 4 holes, point machine mounting holes, is taken from stock rail. Hence, before marking the holes, sleepers are checked for squareness. Fix extended gauge tie plate in the first long sleeper, which is sleeper number 3. Center to center line distance of sleeper number 3 and 4 must not be less than 710 mm. Leading stretcher bar, insulated, is located at a distance of 470 mm from the toe for BG and MG layouts. Fasten leading stretcher bar and ensure toe opening of 115 mm for BG layout and 100 mm for MG layout. Fasten the drive lug RDSO drawing number S8806 to the stretcher bar holes as shown in the layout drawing with insulation plate, washers and sleeves. Check that the special bolt head RDSO drawing number SA312 by M is positioned at the L bent side of the drive lug. The stretcher bar need not be disturbed and is fixed as per the track manual layouts. For fixing the point machine, 4 holes are drilled on extended gauge tie plate of 2 long sleepers. Place the point machine on the sleeper such that the distance of center line of the machine from stock rail inner edge is 1050 mm as shown in the layout drawing. Align the sleeper holes and the point machine holes for fixing. Tie the point machine with the sleepers properly to avoid shaking and vibration while operation. As the mounting holes in the machine are of 20 diameter, the mounting bolt shall be selected as per the requirements of railways. Measure and make note of the travel of drive bar of the machine by hand cranking to either LH or RH side. Point machine installation, mounting of drive rods and lock rods. Operate the drive bar, lock bars and detector bars of the point machine to the inner position and align the close and open notch of RH and LH lock bars respectively to fall in line with the locking pawl for locking the point in LH position. Insert the lock rod drawing number RDSO S327374 into the welded stuck of the lock bar and adjust the tight notch to come in line with the radial movement of the locking pawl for locking the point and secure it with nuts and washers. Connect the other end of the respective connecting hole of the switch extension bracket at near end and hold the lock rod by inserting a pin through it and switch extension bracket. Connect the far end of lock rod drawing number RDSO by S 327172 also in the same way and adjust the nuts in the lock bar to hold lock rods in. Operate the point machine to the other side RH by hand cranking. If the switch rail is housed with stock rail but locking paw could not enter into the lock bar notch, loosen the lock rod connecting nuts and adjust the lock bar alone to align its close notch to enable the locking paw enter into the notch and lock the point at that position. Tighten the hexagonal nuts of the lock rod to hold properly with lock bar. Operate the point machine to LH side by hand cranking and set the lock rod in the same manner as illustrated for RH side. Once again, move the point to previous position and ensure that the locking of the point takes place. Operate the point to close the RH switch and move the detector bars to the inner position manually. Check that the detection roller has fallen freely in the segmental ring and covered top openings as well as the normal detection contacts are made. Connect the shorter detector rod drawing number RDSO S326970 from close switch to the detector bar which aligns its close notch to the roller. Connect the long detector rod drawing number RDSO S326768 from open switch and align its open notch with the closed notch of short detector. Crank to both positions and check that the detection roller falls freely into the notches in the defection bars. If the detection roller is not falling into the notches, then adjust the position of detection rod by adjusting the nuts provided in detector bar till the detection roller falls freely into the notch. Ensure the provision of lock washers in all the rod joints. Tighten all fasteners using a torque wrench. Note: ensure that close switch of point is detected and locked by small notch of detection slit and lock slit respectively. Point machine installation, power connection. Connect the external wiring to the terminal blocks in accordance with the wiring diagram applying for the particular location. Internal wiring for the point machine with split field motor. The relay NWR and RWR are point controlling relays which pick up after all interlocking requirements are fulfilled. NWR controls reverse to normal operation and RWR controls normal to reverse operation of point. Through the front contact of NWR or RWR relay, the heavy duty point contactor relay WCR and point time control relay WJR picks up. WCR relay is a heavy duty contact relay provided to handle the switching current at initial stage of point operation. WJR relay is provided to cut off the supply to the motor after lapse of 10 seconds in case point is under obstruction. Point machine installation. Final adjustment. Adjustment to free stroke for RH switch rail. Operate the machine a couple of times by power. Operate it to RH position. If the travel of the drive rod is correct, the tongue will close well against stock rail at the end of the operation. If the travel of drive rod is not correct, either the tongue will not close at stock rail or the point machine cannot be operated to end position. That is, the clutch slips continuously. Adjust the setting of switch rail to RH positions by tightening or loosening the nuts of drive rod to ensure correct point setting. The close switch shall be adjusted to be just in contact with the stock rail. Then the connections shall be tightened further by 2 mm to 3.5 mm to impart a springing action to the tongue rail. Adjustment of free stroke for LH switch rail. Operate the machine to the LH position and repeat the procedure given for RH switch rail. Adjustment of detection slides. Adjust the long detector rod and short detector rods to make the detection notches align in line with detection roller B or bottom roller. Adjustment of detector contacts. Connect the detector slides and check that close switch is detected by small notch of detection slid. A test gauge of 3.25 mm shall be inserted between the switch rail and stock rail at a distance of 150 mm from the toe of the switch. The machine shall be hand cranked to the end of the stroke to close the tongue rail and check that detection contacts. Obstruction test on point. The point once installed must be tested for safe operations. Tongue rails should house firmly with stock rails for at least 5 sleepers from the toe to the point. The obstruction test is conducted to ensure that in case of any gap between the switch rail and stock rail, the signal cannot be taken off. There are 3 tests conducted for the obstruction test. For conducting the obstruction test, a test gauge is used. The test gauge can be of below thickness, 3 mm thickness, used to ensure that the point cannot be locked with 3 mm obstruction between the tongue rail and stock rail. 5 mm thickness, used to ensure that the detection contacts cannot be made. 1.6 mm thickness, used to ensure the point can operate with this gap to give room for tolerance. The point driving rod and the lock connections of the machine must be so adjusted that with 5 mm thick test piece obstruction placed between the switch and the stock rail at 150 mm from the toe of the switch. 1. The point cannot be locked. 2. The point detector contacts should not assume the position indicating point closure. And 3. Friction clutch should slip. The machine shall be hand cranked to the end of the stroke to close the tongue rail. Insert 1.6 mm test piece between stock rail and switch rail at 150 mm from toe of the switch and operate the point. Ensure detector contacts are just made. Obstruction current. The slipping or obstruction current shall be between 1.5 to 2 times of normal working current. Difference between the normal operating current and the operating current under obstruction is not less than 0.5 ampere. When the current is not within the limits stipulated above, then the clutch requires adjustment and shall be replaced and must not be adjusted at sight. Feed for the motor gets cut off after 1.5 to 2 times the normal operating time of the point. In this section, we've learned about the point machine installation and obstruction tests on points.